What's up guys, so today we're going to be learning about chameleons. Guys, comment below what you want me to do in future videos. Okay guys, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Okay, so we're going to be talking about what you need to know before you buy a chameleon. I would not recommend to get a chameleon, but if you really want one and you're down to do all the stuff you have to do to keep a chameleon alive and happy, then you should get one because it's a very cool animal and it's a cool pet, but you just need to know how to take care of it. Most chameleons are not friendly, but sometimes you would find a few friendly chameleons. It matters really on the type, but also it's very rare to find a chameleon that is friendly. Like once in a while you'll find one. This is a type of animal that you would need a lot of research on, like consistently. If you are considering getting one, there are some important things you need to know that may or may not change your mind on getting one. Chameleons are not really meant for people that are just beginning with reptiles. You should know a little bit about reptiles in general, not only chameleons. Like a chameleon is more advanced than a regular lizard. A regular lizard is much easier to take care of and maintain in your house. It's pretty much for more professional people and people that have experience with reptiles already, like they had turtles, other lizards, snakes, and stuff like that. I wouldn't recommend starting with a chameleon if that's your first reptile. Chameleons have very specific care requirements, so if you mess up on one thing, that could probably get it mad or something like that. It could attack you. And for reasons like that, it's best suited for a person that has experience to own a chameleon rather than a beginner, because the beginner wouldn't know much about the chameleon and he doesn't have as much experience as a person would if he had a different reptile. Most chameleons don't even like being held, so if you want a pet that you can hold, a chameleon wouldn't really be one of them, but some chameleons you would be able to hold them. And even the chameleons that you are able to hold, they still usually get stressed out when you hold them. Like for example, they would like randomly attack you, might want to bite you or something like that. And you'll see later in this video, I'll show you a video of a chameleon attacking someone. And as I said earlier, if you want an animal that you can hold and stuff, I wouldn't recommend a chameleon because they get stressed out and all that. It would be best if you leave the chameleon in its cage, because that's pretty much their home, and when you take them out of the cage, you're pretty much taking them out of their home. And if you're taking them out of their home, they might self-defense and bite you or something like that, because they don't know what you're doing with them. So this is for most chameleons, but there are some exceptions, like other chameleons do want to be handled and do want to be held, but those are very rare to find pretty much, and you'll most likely bump into one that doesn't want to be held. So the chameleon is pretty much a pet that you keep in a cage, and it's just for show pretty much. You could let it out of the cage by letting it go around a garden or something. You have to watch it to make sure it doesn't escape, run away, but they don't really go so fast. They're more of an animal that you get to watch rather than one that you interact with, like fish. You watch them, you don't really like touch them unless you go fishing and stuff like that. So now we're gonna talk about how to tell if your chameleon doesn't like when you're holding it. So if your chameleon doesn't like when you're holding it, it would change to different colors, like darker colors. But if you need to do something for the chameleon, but in order to do that it'll get him stressful, you could do that because it's obviously for the chameleon. But you should try at least to get him stressed out as minimum as possible. Here are examples that you have to get him stressed out a little, like clean out his cage. Or you think your chameleon has a health issue and you want to take him out to check him, you should take him out. Like all those stuff would be fine to take him out. As I said a few times already, they're an animal that should be left alone, but there are some that could be touched. It doesn't matter on species or anything, it's just some you're able to touch them and some you're not able to touch. If you're fine with all that stuff, I would recommend you getting a chameleon. But most people want to interact with the animal, not just watch it. Personally, I like to interact with animals because it's pretty cool than rather watching them. If you come across a chameleon that does like being held, like let's say your friend gives you one or something, I would recommend keeping it if you're into doing all the stuff you need to maintain him and keep him well. Even though some chameleons are just meant for like watching them and stuff, they're actually very cool to watch, and that itself is worth getting a chameleon if you wanna do everything you have to keep it alive. Like how it eats crickets and stuff like that, live animals. It's actually very cool to see, and I'm gonna show you in this video a chameleon hunting right there in slow motion. It's a very cool thing to see. If you want to see that, you could get yourself a chameleon. And as you just saw, even with slow motion, he ate the cricket pretty fast, which is actually very cool. So now I'm going to name a few things that the chameleon needs in its cage. Most of them need high humidity, and also they need a lot of things that they could climb, like sticks. They have these special sticks that they sell, like he's laying on one right now. Okay, so next, obviously they need food and water. It's also recommended to get a few plants, and it's also pretty good for them to go outside of the cage, like put them in your garden for a while, but with you supervising it, like watching it. You should do that so it's like they're going outside and like they're pretty much natural habitat, not just stuck in a cage. You could get them fake plants, but I would say it's better to get them real live plants. If you're a beginner with chameleons, I would say it's best to get a male chameleon, as I'm going to explain in a moment. Because female chameleons lay eggs regardless if there's a male with them or without them. So if you do end up with a female chameleon, you're going to need this thing called a lay bin for the eggs. It's pretty much a kind of container that you put the eggs in and you add some substrate, and that allows a female chameleon to lay their eggs inside that small cage / container. Many things could go wrong when they lay their eggs, because if one small thing would go wrong with your care to the chameleon, like for example, if it's stressed out, it won't lay eggs. If there's something wrong with the cage, it won't lay eggs. So pretty much a chameleon is a type of animal that needs a lot of care for. So you have to know what you're doing before you get a chameleon, because if you don't know what you're doing, and this is with every animal, not just chameleons, if you don't know what you're doing, they could die from just one mistake that you're doing wrong, which is not good at all. Like for example, with the chameleons, you have to have the right lighting, the right temperature, the right humidity, and there's a lot more stuff that you have to make sure is perfect with these chameleons. If there's something wrong with their supplement, they might not lay their eggs also. And also if they don't have a lay bin, they most probably won't lay their eggs. So with all these stuff said, they might lay their eggs, but there's a bigger chance they'll lay their eggs if all these stuff are perfect and you have all the things you need to make sure they lay their eggs properly. So pretty much if your care is not 100% proper, then your chameleons most probably won't lay their eggs. And that's why I would prefer to get a male chameleon over a female chameleon. By a male, you wouldn't have that added risk of them laying eggs, because only female chameleons lay eggs. So pretty much the female needs everything that the male needs to have, and additionally all the stuff I said earlier that it needs for its eggs. If you're a first-time owner of a chameleon, I would recommend getting a male. And if you have experience, I would actually still stick with the male still. But then eventually, after a while, you could get a female. And as you saw again, he went for a cricket, which is actually a very cool thing to watch. Even by watching them, it's pretty cool. Just because you can't touch them doesn't mean they don't look cool, like by watching them. You should get a male because it's easier, and you're still learning about the chameleons. So I would prefer the male because it's much easier than the females, because you don't need to worry about them laying eggs. And also, if you don't know what you're doing with the female chameleon, they could become egg bound, which means that they won't be able to lay any more eggs, and that's a very serious thing. Chameleons can be very territorial and aggressive, which most probably they won't want you to touch it. As I told you guys earlier that I'm going to show you a video of a chameleon almost biting a person, so I'm going to show you that in a few moments. But for now I'm going to continue with this topic. Like, if they are aggressive, they wouldn't want your hands going next to them or anything, and they would probably end up biting you if you don't get the message on the first time. Their bites really shouldn't hurt, but they might scare you while you're holding it, and then you might drop it, which could actually hurt the lizard very badly, and it's not good for the chameleon. So now we're going to go more into about what the chameleon needs for his cage and stuff like that. A glass cage wouldn't be suitable for them. Like, you need a screen cage, as most people have. In pet stores they usually have a glass cage, which is not good for them, as I said. And the reason why you need a screen cage is because they need a lot of air consistently coming through the cage. Chameleons do need a big cage, so an adult chameleon needs a cage like equivalent to 120 gallons. So if you are looking into getting a chameleon, you should check out the cage requirements so you don't stress them out if the cage is too small, and they might die if the cage is too small. Make sure you know how big the cage has to be and the screen size and everything like that. As most of you guys probably know, Raw Fishing, he's a YouTuber, he has a lot of fish, and he actually has his own chameleon, which sometimes seems not aggressive at all. And as you can tell, he's holding it and the chameleon's not really getting stressed out or anything. This chameleon seems like a friendly chameleon until it goes up to pretty much bite him. Like, he's playing with it right now. So this is how you know that a chameleon doesn't want to be held. If he goes and bites you, in a few moments you're going to see him about to attack him. This chameleon is from Madagascar, which is actually a very cool chameleon. And as you can see, it has very nice colors. And also, I would make sure that your face is not next to the chameleon. As you just saw right now, he almost bit him and he was shocked, which means like he usually doesn't do that. As I said earlier, it really wouldn't hurt you if you did get bitten by one, but just to make sure like you don't drop him if you get scared of when he bites you. And chameleons do shed, so it's best not to touch them when they shed so you don't ruin any of their new skin or anything like that. As you can tell, he's holding it and it is shedding. It's best not to. So then afterwards he goes and puts it back into his cage. And as you guys can see, he has like a nice cage over there with good lighting and what he needs to have for him to survive. If you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a thumbs up, like, share, and comment what you think about this video. And most of all, subscribe and watch my videos.